Welcome to Saints on Cinema. I'm Tim Wild, your host, and joining me tonight is Zach Marsh.
Hey.
He is so enthusiastic to be here, and we just
I'm depressed after the movie about everything.
Right, we are talking tonight about the Joker, because he is DC's greatest villain, among the top favorite villains of all time in cinema and in fiction and comic books and everything. One of my favorites. Does he rank up there with you, Zach, or are you just weird?
No, Joker is my number 2 favorite. The only reason I have Harley as number 1 is because she's attractive. So.
All right, fair enough. And we can totally do a Harley discussion coming up in the new
the Emancipation movie.
Yeah. Anyway, so we just watched Joker. Yes, it's a rated R movie. Yes, we're a couple of members of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, and we still watch the movie because it's a phenomenal movie. And this is not going to be a normal review. This is going to be a two witnesses discussion of the Joker movie and some things I wanted to talk about the character and the story in this movie. Visually and the music and everything, absolutely 10 out of 10 for me. I think there's some visuals that are just incredible, and a lot of messages are in the story being told in the cinematography and in the music. We're going to do a whole thing about that, but without clips, it would be really boring to talk about it. Would you agree with that, Zach?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the music was just absolutely spot on between the soundtrack and the score itself. I didn't look who did the score, but absolutely incredible. It's nothing I would like pop in the car to listen to on the freeway or anything, but amazing. When you watch this movie, pay attention to the tone and the driving of the story and the emotions that are sucked out from the score. Incredible. And the visuals, same thing. But maybe this is a movie I would do like top 7 cinematic shots from this film. But instead, I wanted to, I guess before we jump into what I want to talk about, Zach, we haven't really talked about it. I know you posted positively about it, but what were your general thoughts, like a 1-minute review of the movie?
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat. I give it a 10 out of 10. I think they nailed pretty much everything. I know there's some controversy surrounding it, but actually, this is one of those movies. There's a few movies I think everyone should see, and I have decided that this should be on that list. Everyone should see this just as almost a self-reflection and a societal reflection, because it really delves deep into mental health and how society treats people and things like that, which a lot of movies don't really touch on. They touch on it superficially,
right,
but not really how it impacts an individual person who gets slammed by it. And it does such a good job.
I felt like this was a complete character study of someone who's really experiencing that, and it's absolutely believable.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So anyways, yeah, I think it was great. It was probably one of the best movies I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I agree. And I heard some people, I watched reviews after I see it, and I do a review, and I already did a Tim's take of it. I didn't put it out there though. And a lot of people think it's a little too much like Taxi Driver or King of Comedy or whatever. They think it's just taking an already done story and just milking off of that. I don't find that as a flaw. And a lot of people also think that this was a movie that they had a script and they just wanted to attach the DC label on it, so they threw in a couple of names like Gotham and Thomas Wayne and Joker, and just to sell it. I don't believe that either.
At first, I kind of was thinking along those lines when I was watching the movie. And spoiler alert, like we're going to talk about a lot of spoilers.
Absolute
here.
Spoilers, yep.
So, but when they first started introducing the elements about Thomas Wayne, I'm like, nope, this is bull crap. This is utter bull crap. Like, no, this isn't what happens. You can't just shove this crap in and change everything. But they did it. They did it. That was a part of the Joker's delve into madness. His mom's false information or her own psychosis about Thomas Wayne and her relationship with Thomas Wayne. And Thomas Wayne, as far as we can tell, was actually a decent person. Maybe protective of his son, right? And that's how he is in the comics. So I actually think they stayed true to the comics, which makes it fit in that universe as opposed to delving off somewhere that they didn't have to.
Right. I think he was a good character to counter what Arthur was going through in the story, where he was dealing with the issues with society, higher class, upper class, and lower class. He was not the Thomas Wayne from like the Christopher Nolan Batmans, where he was the hero and a doctor, and he was like helping architect, or trying to build and engineer things in the city that are gonna be there for the lower class and everything.
Which is a little over the top, to be honest. Like there's really not people like that. It's a different take.
Yeah. Putting all that aside, I agree with you. Like I said, I don't feel like it was shoehorned in. I think it was a relevant character study, not in the DC EU, whatever it is. It's a Warner Brothers picture. Doesn't say DC anywhere else in the beginning that I remember. It's just, this is the character of the Joker, and you're learning about the Joker. So
it could fit into any of those stories, really, if you wanted it to. It's ambiguous enough. They didn't go, oh, this belongs to something, or it doesn't belong to anything. It's like, no, this is his origin and Batman's origin in a very small way.
Right. All right. So let's go and I want to talk about the Joker. So the first thing, he has two main things I was watching threaded throughout the story. One was his issue and his feelings of being just invisible to everyone else, as being overlooked by people in society, and that representing the lower class, and why they retaliated in the movie, and why they became so violent and had the big riots and everything at the end, and him becoming their champion in his mind, at least. We'll talk about that, but becoming the champion representing all of them. But the other thing is the transition of him as a good person into the master of chaos that he was at the end. You remember the very beginning scene where he's talking to his therapist. He's like, the first thing you hear is all the radio clips and everyone talking about the strikes have been on for like 17 days or whatever. There's garbage and rats everywhere and all this stuff. And he gets sitting to his therapist and he's like, okay, it's getting crazy out there. It's like he's like inside while the world is going crazy on the outside, showing he has some mental stability, he has emotions, he has some heart, he cares, and he seems like a good person at the beginning. He is a good person in the beginning. And I submit to you, Zach, that this movie, the first or third of this movie, up until the shooting on the train with the three guys, is about the character Arthur. And then after that is about the character Joker, and I'll explain why I feel that way. But the first thing about him, making him come out, is his invisibility, and some of that's self-inflicted, some of that is just the way the world is, and he just kind of takes it, maybe internally takes it personally, and some of it is just circumstantial, and it just happens to the wrong guy at the wrong time. Let me walk you through some thoughts I had as I was watching for that. First thing he has is him on the street when he's holding the sign, spinning around and stuff, and then the kids come and take the sign and they're running off, and he's charging after him down the street, and he's yelling, "Stop those kids!"
And no one does a thing. No one cares at all.
Yeah, or notice. I mean, the camera is moving so rushed, you can't see people reacting. But yeah, no one responds. He's just by himself, gets in the alley, and then he gets beaten up. After that, he goes and he's talking to his therapist. While he's talking to his therapist, and she asks for the journal. He hands her the journal, and he says, "Oh, I don't remember if I told you. It also has jokes," because he said, I don't remember if you remember. Sorry. I don't remember if you remember. I don't know if you remember. I told
that
you
I'm going to be a comedian.
I'm going to be a comedian. Right. She's like, "No, I don't think you did." And he's like, "Great."
I definitely did. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Little things. He goes to the mailbox every day. There's never any mail. So it's like, he never
exists. It's just a subtle, small thing, but yeah.
Yeah. He goes back and he's talking to his boss about the sign that was stolen. He's like, "I don't know what's going on, but you got to pay for the sign." And he's like, "Why would some kid steal the sign?" And he's like, "Why would I steal it?" Like, his boss doesn't believe his story. Is like, "I'm
right
here." Things like that.
He's like, "I don't know, you're a weirdo. You stole it." And you're like, "What?"
It's like, why would I steal the sign? He gets in the elevator. He's like pushing the button to close the door, and it doesn't respond for him. And then she gets on. The girl does the finger to the finger gun thing in the elevator because that awkward moment. She gets off, and then he goes the other way, and then he turns around and he says, "Hey," and then he does it in a little more cartoony, and she like barely responds. She like, and then she like goes in.
Yeah.
He goes back in and he's talking about, I think it was the name Carnival. I couldn't catch it either time. I saw it twice now, but he's talking about the name Carnival. That was like my stage name or whatever, but now it's like a song. So it's like, that's when he's like, I feel like some days I don't feel like I even exist. So that's coming out a little more obvious now. And then she just moves right on with business. And then he's like, "You don't even listen to me. I just said that I don't feel like I exist. And you just don't even acknowledge it."
Right.
or that she says that there's not gonna be any more therapy, no more meds. It's like you're not a person anymore. Like you're not in society. So like that's being cut off. He goes to the door when he's sitting outside talking to the cops, and he tries to go into the door and it doesn't respond. He's like waving at the sensor, but it's an exit door. Little things like that. And then I thought about the knock knock joke. When his plan to go on stage, say knock knock, and then who's there, and then kill himself. And the way he acts that out in his apartment, that's a message saying knock knock. The response is who's there? No one. Arthur's dead. That's the answer to who's there. Like no one's there. It's Arthur. I think that's telling. I think that's a big deal. And then before he goes on stage, he tells what's his name? Murray. He says, when you have me come out, will you introduce me as Joker? And he's like, why? He's like, well, that's what you called me on your show. He's like, did I? I don't remember. I barely remember you. He's like, you did. And then the final speech when he's ranting before he kills Arthur, while the crowd's like, boo, and he's like, shut it down, or we heard enough of your jokes. He's like, if I kill these two guys, or I kill these three guys, and everyone freaks out because Thomas Wayne gets on the news and he cares about him. But if it was me lying in the street, you would all walk right past.
You would all walk by. Oh, yeah.
That was him. Like, that's the only point. Once he puts on the makeup at the end and struts out of his office, or out of his apartment, he's in total control. And we'll talk about that. But he has control. And that's the only time he kind of loses it, when he's kind of ranting, just getting it all out before he kills Murray. But that's a key statement. If it was me laying there, everyone would have walked right past and no one cares.
Yep.
But that's his journey of a lot of subtle things, where if people have a problem with the script and the build up to the climax of this movie, when he shoots Arthur, or when he shoots Murray, it's like, this was telling and painting a picture of this person who behaves disturbingly later, but there's a thread where there's a lot of things that kind of built up to trigger him to be the way he is at the end. And that's a psychological thing. Some of those things are just, you go on an exit, you pull when it says push, little things like that. Those things can happen to anyone, and someone who's emotionally or mentally unstable, or takes them the wrong way, takes things like that personally, lets those things get to them. Those are people that can cause that can have other things in circumstances trigger them. And that's why that wasn't his only journey. That was just one of the threads that was building up for his final climax.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like the being alone and being othered by society is, it's a big problem they have today. They have cyberbullying going on. And, a lot of kids are struggling with that. A lot of kids struggle with depression because of things like that. Like, that's a real thing that people deal with too, and you have days like that. But when you suffer from a mental illness, he says, I always have negative thoughts. If you're suffering from depression, you dwell on those things, all of those things, or you worry what other people are thinking about you, or if they even care. And you think that I'm better off. No one would care if I died.
Right.
And, and that's sort of what he's trying to, when he writes the phrase, I want my death to make more sense than
my life.
He wants to have meaning. He wants to have meaning for his death, which he kind of is trying to do. He's trying to say, I've been nothing, and he wants to make a point. He wants to go out with a bang, quite literally. But the other thing, though, so you got the mental illness, and you got him being othered. So these are two things that are really contributing. But then you have the I don't even know how to describe it. Like
the identity thing with his parents.
Yeah, his identity. So, and this is where I disagree with your premise that he's the Joker after that first shooting. I'd probably disagree with that.
Well, let me finish my case, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
But talk about his identity, though. What do you mean? Because you're exactly right.
Well, so at first he thinks he's okay. There's two things I want to talk about. So there's the identity, and then there's dreams and hope. So so the identity, he thinks he's his mom's kid. His dad left him, and then he thinks Thomas Wayne is his dad. And then he finds out that Thomas Wayne is not his dad. And then not only is Thomas Wayne not his dad, but his mom is not his mom.
Right.
And his mom basically adopted him as part of her delusion and abused him and or let her boyfriends like so any connection to anything is gone. Now, a part of that too is his connection to Murray. He fantasizes about Murray being his dad and being on the show with Murray.
That acceptance from his idol. Yeah.
Right. Well, and he even says to him, he's like, "Oh, I wish I had a son like you," and he's like, "Thanks." And it wants him to be a father figure. So that leads into my next thing about hope. Like, he still has hope at the beginning. There's still like, yeah, and this is where it gets really, really interesting psychologically, where you kind of reflect on yourself, because what was creepy to this is me seeing real things that he thought and did in me. Now, not on the murder side. No, right. I've never. I mean, you do sometimes go, man, I wish I could just kill that guy, but you're not like really considering murder, right?
You're
like,
stuck in traffic and there's like 50 cars that are being jury sites, which is, yeah.
But when he's sitting there watching the show and he's all like, oh, what if I was sitting in an audience and I got picked out? Or like you're sitting and watching like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you're like, man, if only I could be on that show. I could win like, and you're like, you picture all this. Or you go, what if I won the lot? Yes, daydreaming. What if I won the lottery? That's exactly the type of stuff he's doing. And then there's the flip side where there's the things like when his boss is going off on him about, like you mentioned earlier, about the sign, when you're like, yeah, my boss just got mad at me for the stupidest thing. I literally just want to punch him in the face. Like, you're an awful person. But they explore those elements. And then so part of his descent into madness is his hope and dreams being shattered. All of his daydreams, not only do they not come true, they get shattered.
Right. So I want to talk about this. Is part of his. So if we're looking at that, when he's becoming the Joker, and all those little things are building up, and you hit a couple of things I mentioned. All right, I had in here. One thing is, I might have this a little bit out of order, but these are kind of the process things that happen kind of in the middle. One is after he goes and talks to Thomas in the bathroom, he finds out about his mother. He goes to the what is the state hospital, whatever, and the Gotham City Hospital, whatever, and finds out everything from the file.
Arkham.
What really happened.
Arkham. Isn't it Arkham?
It's not Arkham.
Is that later? Okay.
I don't think it actually says Arkham.
Okay.
I really don't think. Anyway, so say it's Arkham. We know it's Arkham, but anyway, but he goes, he finds out, and that's when he goes home. Now, the girlfriend. So that's one of the first delusions, and this is what I submit to. The first half or the first third of the movie, up until the train sequence, he behaves differently, but all of those little delusions, except for being on the Murray show, all happen after the train sequence. He has that scene in the beginning, which the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, it felt like this really happened. And it happened. He was on the show. He talked to Murray. He pulled up, and he was remembering that while he's sitting there watching with his mother. And then, like halfway into the movie, is when Murray shows the clip of him. Now, when he's sitting in the hospital, his mom's sitting there sick and dying or whatever, and Murray is on the screen, and he shows the clip of him at the comedy club. And he's seeing that the people are laughing at him, and Murray is making jokes at him. But the trigger was that he says almost the same line where he says, I was put on this earth to make people smile, or whatever the line is. He said the same thing in what I say is his fantasy in the beginning, where Murray's like, oh, so you say something like that, come down here. You deserve to be on stage after saying something like that. And then he hugs him, and he says, I'd give all these lights and everything to have a kid just like you, because he's proud of the way he's taking care of his mother. This is a fantasy. When I watched it the second time, I was like, that was a little too on the nose for who Arthur is and what he's missing in life as a father and everything. That I was like, that didn't really happen. Later on, when he's watching the same person making fun of him, he's like, he's making fun of me. I remembered being there, and he knew who I was and cared about me. Now he's making fun of me. That's a shattered illusion, where this attention from his hero was destroyed. And then it's followed up a third time when he's there in the green room at the end before he comes on the show. Murray goes and introduces himself, and he's like, "Oh, I want you to bring me out and call me Joker," you know. But he's like, "That's what you called me." And he's like, "Oh, I don't remember." But he tells him at the beginning of that conversation, he says, "This is what I this is how I imagine it. This is it's like I've been a big fan for a long time." He didn't say like, "Oh, I remember that time I was here." He's acting like it's his first time meeting him. I think after he became Joker, the delusion shattered. The other thing is with the girl. He trying to remember the exact sequence of when it happens, but when he goes to, after he goes, let's see, I'm trying to remember. After he murders the people, he goes home and
you're talking about the 3 in the subway?
The 3 in the subway, yeah.
Okay.
He goes home and he dances and he is practically naked. You know, he's sitting on the couch and he's not naked, excuse me. He just that's the part where he does his dance and performs for himself in the mirror.
He does it in the mirror in the bathroom, yeah.
Gorgeous sequence, by the way.
Yeah.
But that's where he feels good. He feels triumphant. He goes and kisses the girl. He just knocks on the door, walks right in because he feels accomplished. He feels proud.
See, that's right. It's an adrenaline rush he just had, and he's
bold. He walks right in, kisses her. She closes the door. That's where the fantasies begin with her, and she's always in there when he's having a hard time, and when he's celebrating the victory, watching on the news the clown violence and all that stuff. And then after the sequence with Thomas and the sequence in the hospital, that's when he comes home in the rain, and he goes up and he goes into her apartment, drenched, sits down on her couch, looking, and he's touching her little backpack or coat or whatever, and he sits down, and when he sits down, he's just kind of dwelling, and things are just hitting him. He just found out his mom abused him and let her boyfriends abuse him. Thomas Wayne's not his dad, all that stuff. And then she comes in scared and says, "Are you Arthur? Are you the guy who lives down the hall?"
Right, yeah.
And she doesn't recognize. He's like nodding. That didn't trigger him. He's like nods. And then he turns when she says, "Is there someone I can call?" Or she's like,
Should I call your mom?
Is your mom home? Right.
Yeah.
And that's when he turns and glares, because that was his refuge. In his mind, she was like his girlfriend. She supported him at the comedy club. She went off to the hospital, and she was there for these meaningful moments for him. But once all that stuff with his parenthood was gone, he goes to her place, his refuge, and she comes out, doesn't recognize him, and then triggers him saying, "Should I call your mom?"
Yeah.
Like it reminded him it was all done. Then that's where it cuts. He walks out of her apartment, and then he goes, and that's when he's naked, sitting on the couch, or in his boxer underwear, whatever, sitting on the couch, laughing hysterically while ambulance sirens are in the outside. And you can't tell if that's related to her, but I think he killed her. I didn't think.
You think that? I've heard someone else say that, but I don't know for sure.
The other thing is when he walks into the building, after the asylum, everything. He goes in, and while he's walking into the building, he stops and turns around, and he remembers, and it shows a clip of her doing the finger gun, and he walks in, and then he does that right before it cuts, and he walks out. She says, "Should I call your mom?" He turns and goes, and then walks out. I'm like, killed her. He killed her. Because she destroyed that illusion, and she wasn't there to take care of him like he thought. And he never hurts anyone in this movie who didn't wrong him. I think there was enough evidence built up in all that stuff that he was imagining himself.
Justified he justified in his mind her wronging him.
Yep.
I'm open to that possibility. I don't know for sure.
It's ambiguous. And that's what I love about this movie, how ambiguous it is. And it's not like, oh, we don't know. They didn't just throw a bunch of crap out there and let you figure it out. There's subtle things. It's like, there's things for you to figure out. And I don't give, what's his name? Todd, the director. I don't give him enough credit to say that all the things that I was thinking about are as brilliant and specific as he intended. I don't know.
But there was some stuff he was obviously thinking about. Like, if you're talking about cinematography, in between all these scenes that we're talking about, he's going down and upstairs, and I see that as totally descending and coming out of madness.
Yeah.
Down into madness and then coming back out, like over and over again.
Yeah. I can't wait for this to come out because I want to do a video clipping together the stairs. The stair sequences are like 7 of them. They all have different meaning each time.
And the last one, which is my favorite, is him dancing his way into madness. So there's the times when he's coming out, but then the last one he's like, nope, I'm jumping in, so to say. He's like, I'm happy, I'm going in with a smile.
Right. And those same shots earlier in the movie was him drudgery just climbing, fighting his way up the stairs after a long day, and then that same shot come down, he's all colorful, dancing and happy and just totally embracing his new self as Joker. And he comes down, and the only thing I don't like about that is that's where the cop chase scene starts. I wish they didn't do that because it kind of cuts off that beautiful moment where he has arrived. And you're right. And he is in complete composure going down into madness where he was. I totally agree.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love that. That was good.
Okay. I want to talk about, let's just go into, let's finish. Let me go on to more how he became the Joker. So he finds all that stuff out, finds out with Thomas Wayne, sending him home. He realizes now his mom wasn't who he thought she was, and Thomas Wayne isn't who he thought he was. He feels dead. He goes home, and that's when it cuts to him going into the freezer. First time I watched it, I was like, I didn't understand that scene, and I still don't know if I get it. But he comes, what'd you say?
Yeah, no, I thought that too. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it wasn't committing suicide. And I was like, okay, it's a parental thing, I think. Was he kind of in his mind going into the wound? Was he kind of putting himself in a shelf in a cupboard where he didn't exist? Because then you hear the phone's ringing at the apartment and inside. And then you hear cars and traffic. It sits on that shot with him inside, nothing happening for a while. And it's like a shaky cam. It's kind of cool. But he's inside where it's like, is he back in the womb being reborn? Is he just like cutting off because he feels cut off? He feels like he doesn't exist and he just came out of a cupboard or whatever. All those things kind of was a very good visual of what happened. The next shot, he's laying on the couch, and that's when the Murray Franklin show is calling him to book him. Well, when you're booking him, he's like, that sounds really great. Now they're booking the Joker. They're not booking Arthur. They were making fun of Arthur, but he's planning on going on as the Joker. The other difference, earlier in the movie, Arthur, he does a couple parts where he tries to dance, except for when he's celebrating to himself after he kills someone or something happened, he can't dance. When he's in his apartment by himself, he can't dance. The Joker's strutting down those stairs, and when he gets on the Murray show, beautiful, just fun, little colorful, totally controlled, comfortable dancer. I think that's a big deal. Before he kills Penny, here's the thing. This is some of the dialogue he says. He says, you always told me about my laughing condition. It's not really a condition. It's the real me. And then he says, I've never had a single happy moment in my life. And he says, I've always thought my life was a tragedy, but it's not. It's a comedy. That's where he's flipping. All the things that he was laughing at were actually the real jokes. So right there, I want to talk about his laughing condition, all right? This is going to sell you. Are you ready for this? I'm so proud of this analysis. So I really am. So I noticed in the laughing, the first time I watched it, there's scenes where sometimes when he's laughing, and his laugh, some people have said like his laughter gets really annoying. I'm like, I loved it because it always meant something.
No, I thought so too. Like he had his fake laugh, and then he had the laugh caused by the
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so going through the plot, here's the things that he laughed and what the laughter was representing. I thought this was really interesting. The first time he's laughing, the first time he cuts to him, he's in therapy and he's just laughing before he starts the conversation. That's when he says, it's getting crazy out there. That's not, I'm laughing at the craziness. He's laughing because it's sad. It's just general sadness in the world. And he's like, it's getting bad out there. And that's after the signs and everything. Then he's on the subway and he's playing peekaboo with the kid in front of him, and the mom turns and yells at him and says, stop harassing my kid. He's like, I wasn't. She's like, just stop it. She cuts him off, and it's awkward, and it's like kind of like, hey, that wasn't necessary. And he starts laughing. That's when he hands her the card to show the audience about the condition, which I believe in the condition. Then he laughs when he's handed the gun in the locker room, whatever. The guy hands him the gun. He opens the bag. He's like, ah! he like laughs at the gun. That's shock. You know, that's like terror. That's like, what is this doing here? That freaks him out. Then, as you said, the fake laugh. The guy that gave him the gun turns to the midget guy, or dwarf, whatever he is, and he says, I always had a question for you. Is it miniature golf, or do you guys just call it golf? It's kind of funny. Arthur is going to the manager's office, and he does his fake laugh because he thought he was being a jerk. He
right.
Like, you know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And then
he does a couple more times.
Yeah, he does. And then while the boss is yelling at him, and this might have been about the sign, but he's just talking about how, you know, no one else likes you, but I like you. I don't know why I like you. But he's like ripping on him and telling him he's about to lose his job. And Arthur's just faking a smile. Or he's just trying to withhold the laughter, but he's just like holding it in. Then he's on the train or the subway when the guys are harassing that woman, throwing crackers at her, whatever they're doing, those idiots. He's laughing, and that's what gets her attention, but he's doing it out of like, this is horrible. He feels bad. He's kind of scared or whatever, and he's like, his wishes, it's just uncomfortable. He's just sad. Then they come over to him. He's laughing because now he's petrified because they're bullying him and ganging up on him. That's when he snaps. I'm telling you, Zach, this is what happens from that sequence. He kills 3 kids. That's when he runs home and does the dance, and that's when he goes into the girl's apartment and kisses her. All that stuff came to life for him because that's the moment, not the moment, it's a transition, but in the movie, that's the moment where he started becoming the Joker. Before that, he was Arthur, just dealing with his life. And from that moment, things changed. Because here's what happened. His laughter changed after that scene, and I paid close attention. This is the thing. He always laughed at awkward and weird moments. Before, after that happened, let me point out when he didn't laugh, when he normally would have. He didn't laugh when the budget was cut and he was talking to the therapist. She said, there's no more meds. Straight face. He's like, well, where am I going to get my meds from? Didn't laugh. When he was on stage, he was laughing when he was a little bit scared, when he was scared to get on stage. But that's because he didn't know how to laugh. He was forcing himself to laugh. And even earlier when he was watching The Comedian as Arthur, remember, he was laughing at the jokes, but not at the jokes. He was looking around, laughing, trying to force himself to laugh with the wrong timing when everyone else was laughing. And when the guy was telling his story, if it was like the setup of this joke, he was laughing at the setup before the joke, before the punchline hit.
Yeah, that's right.
He's like trying to condition himself to learn when to laugh, because Arthur doesn't understand when to laugh. Joker does. So he gets on stage himself, and until he composes himself and then spits out his crappy line, that's when the audience is laughing at him, but he thinks they're laughing with him. Then, this is the difference. He's watching the Murray show in his apartment or whatever, and now he's laughing at the right times when Murray is giving his jokes. He's getting it now, and he's laughing. He smiles when he's watching the clown violence. He doesn't laugh when he's in the elevator with that guy thrashing around on the bed. He's just as uncomfortable and scared as Arthur would have been. He doesn't laugh when the cops are interrogating him at the hospital. He doesn't laugh when he's listening to the clerk, the file clerk, talking to him about his mother. He doesn't laugh when he runs away. You want to know when he laughs? When he gets to the part of the story when he starts reading about the violence. The violence is what makes the Joker laugh for the rest of the movie. He laughs when he's reading about his abuse, but he doesn't laugh when he goes to the girl's apartment. He's just sitting there scared. And then she says, can I call someone? Then he goes and he laughs. He doesn't laugh when he's fighting with Alfred, when he goes to the Wayne's home. And then when Wayne's in the... What's that?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, wow.
Yeah. He goes to the theater, and now he sneaks in. And remember watching the silent movie, whatever it was? He's laughing with the audience appropriately at the movie. Arthur didn't know when to laugh, but the Joker does. And he's laughing with the movie, sees Thomas go to the bathroom. He goes into the bathroom, and then he goes in, and Wayne is like, he's totally normal. He's like, no, I don't want an autograph or something. I just wanted to talk or whatever. And he says, oh, you're that guy that came to the house. He said, no, I promise, I'm not your father. Let me tell you about your mother. And he's like, why? Don't lie to me. Why would I wasn't adopted. And he's just getting defensive, but he's not laughing. Right. It's not until it's getting heated, then Thomas punches him, violence. That's when he starts laughing hysterically and spits out the blood. And then he doesn't laugh when the cops are chasing him until the cops are getting beat up by the clowns on the train. Then he laughs, and then he's laughing when he's on the show appropriately until he shoots Murray. Then he kind of like is smiling and he's just very smugly, but he doesn't laugh. I mean, before the scene on the subway, he doesn't know when to laugh. He's awkward and kind of weird in every situation. Afterwards, he's not, because he's triggering and transitioning into Joker. That's my with the laughter situation.
I'll believe it. I think I'll agree with that, because the wording is transitioning.
Yes.
When he becomes,
he's not instantly Joker.
Yeah, that's right. At the end of the movie, he literally is nobody. He has nothing he cares about. He has no dreams. He says, "I believe in nothing anymore." That's when he's the Joker, because nothing matters. He can just do whatever he wants, and that's fine. So yeah, I think you're right. I agree with that.
That's the storytelling.
That's a great assessment.
That's the brilliance of the script, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I just made that up in my head. Maybe I'm like the Joker, right? Or if that was all intentional between Joaquin Phoenix's performance and the other thing that you notice when you watch the movie, you remember in the beginning he's always shaking and holding down his leg. He's kind of control his leg. He does that several times before the subway scene. He never does it again. Even when he's being interrogated, he's totally calm until once he kills Murray. His whole body is trembling because it's almost like a joygasm. He's just...
Well, I do think when he talks about his true self is happiness in other people, or what you're saying is kind of happiness and violence. Right. But I mean, that's when he's most confident, right? And happy. When he can do whatever he wants, whatever it is.
And this, that's the other interpretation as journalist says, people expect you to behave as if you don't. It's like people want me to misbehave. Or another interpretation is like, if I don't do anything, that's what people want you to do, is just be nothing. You're to be calm. Well, the other interpretation is like, if people want me to misbehave, then that's what they expect me to behave as if I'm not behaving. So the violence is just like the triggering, because in his mentality, that's why he says his life is a comedy, because these violent acts and all this stuff, he justifies it because it's what people deserve. And he only hurts the people that are the cops chasing him, or his mother, or whatever, who people have hurt him or wronged him. But that violence is what the Joker sees as a joke, and that's why
he says humor is subjective.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's not funny. He's like, well, humor is subjective. It's what I find funny.
Right. And the brilliant cap on that is when he's in the therapist at the end, when he's sitting there thinking to himself about the scene with the Waynes dying in the street and Bruce standing there, he's just laughing to himself. She's like, what's so funny? He's like, I'm just remembering a joke. You wouldn't get it. Before he kills her. He kills the therapist at the end.
That makes way more sense, because I was thinking about what that scene was. I'm like, why did it transition to that? Like, would he have seen that? But no, if he's thinking of that happening and laughing, it's because that's pretty good. That's pretty cool.
So, and I was thinking, like, did he drive by that alley and see the boy? No, it's Thomas Wayne. Every Batman movie shows the newspaper clips showing what happened.
And it's almost so cheesy and perfect, like his other delusions. It's probably just how he's imagining it, right? He just imagines that that's what's happening.
Right. So that's my case for the laughing and the transition, where you can see that, because I think that was a really big deal, including with what he had in his journal, and where he said to the therapist, this is also my jokes. When you flip those pages, there's
it's a bunch of dark stuff. Yeah.
To him, those are the beats of his comedy. Before he kills Murray, this is the other thing. He comes out, dances. He doesn't do it the same way he rehearsed. And if you remember, the first time he gets to his apartment and plays with the gun while he's watching the Murray show, you don't even notice it the first time. He points it over, and the way they frame the shot, he points it over and pulls it and just does a dry shot with no bullet at the empty chair. Exactly like he does at the end when he kills Murray. He's not thinking that. He's not like visualizing killing Murray. He's just playing with the gun and shoots it. Then he stands up and does, oh, you're a good dancer and all that, and then he shoots the wall. Excuse me. That's called foreshadowing. But that's really cool. But once he decides he's going on the show, his plan, and he rehearses watching the guy, he has the curtain in the other room, and he comes out and does his his stepping onto the stage just like the guy in the show. He's practicing.
He's mimicking,
He doesn't do it at all the same way, because now by the time he gets out there, he's like, I
can be me, right? I don't have to practice fitting into the social circles. I'm being whatever I want to be, because I don't care anymore.
Yeah. And him, where he's even behind stage, like just waiting, and the audience is out there laughing because they showed the clip of when they were making fun of him, and he's just like embracing it, yeah, bring it on, basically. And he goes out and he owns the stage. He goes out, does his dances, kicks, twirls, goes over, he kisses the lady, and she's like totally uncomfortable, and he just sits down. And remember, he was practicing even how to slouch correctly, how to sit comfortably. He just drops right in, and he's totally there. And that's my favorite part of the movie. I would watch that scene like 10 times, not because he kills Murray. It's horrible. It's a horrible, violent scene. But the just how he is responding to the audience, laughing with Murray, sometimes kind of against him, where he jokes. He's like, oh, let me tell you a joke. He pulls out his notepad and he goes, his book. He's like, oh, he says, knock, knock. He's like, you had to pull up your notebook for that.
They say this about naturally confident people, which is also a thing that's kind of scary. But they say, like, presidents of the United States, they come into a room and you just know, like, or like a general conference when the prophet comes in the room, you just know, and this is the opposite in that this is an awful person, but at this point he's a terrible, but he has that you can see it through the screen. He controls that audience.
I love it.
Or he owns that audience, I guess you should say. But
I love it. He
that's not my favorite scene. That's my second favorite. I bet you know my favorite scene.
I'd have to think. I don't know. Well, let me finish my case. Let's talk about. I don't know. When he does that, and he says, and he doesn't tell the knock joke. He tells a joke, and it's a bad joke, and then it turns, and that's when he like confesses. And he's not confessing. He's just like owning it. He's really owning it. Here's why I killed those guys. And he starts talking about society. He's getting ridiculed. They're like trying to cut. And he's like, he won't do it. And he says, and then when Murray says that it's a pity party, it's a pity show. And this is the scene where the movie is not telling the story that the media narrative has been on social media for weeks now, talking about how this is going to promote violence and all this stuff. This is the moment. This is the climax of the film, and it's absolutely the opposite. Explaining
all the political stuff people are saying. I'm like, no, this is total bullcrap. This guy doesn't believe in anything. The movie doesn't promote anything. This is about his descent into madness.
And it's identifying conditions and situations that caused it.
That contribute to it, right? There's outside forces that contribute. But no way is the movie saying anything about these situations.
Right.
Except that they exist and impact people.
And we should be mindful of it and do something about it. And watch for people like these and care about other people and try and make sure we have programs and we're supportive of those programs. We're reaching out and doing things for each other. Kind of like Christ.
I mean, the scary thing. Right. The scary thing is this really happens. Not to the scale of the Joker, but this really happens. Like, there's some school shooters that they were bullied, they were mistreated, they were othered, they spent too much time on the internet reading a bunch of crazy crap, and it pushed them into a weird space, and they went and they did this. This is not like an unrealistic story.
That's the scary.
Except
but not that this movie is going to cause that, and the people who made the movie should be ashamed of themselves for glorifying it. That's not at all what this movie was.
No, in fact, it made me self-reflect to some extent, not only on like, oh gosh, well, what characteristics that I have that this guy has, but also like, what do I need to do to not treat people like this, or to look out for people so that they don't end up doing that.
Right. One more thought about the smile, and I have a couple of Batman anecdotes, and you can tell me your favorite scene. The smile. 3 parts of the smile that really caught me. The first time is in the opening scene. This is in the trailer where he's sitting there, he's holding his jaw like that and trying to smile. When he does that, the camera's up really close, and he's pulling a frowny face first, and that's fine. It's when he's forcing the smile, that's when it hurts and it's agonizing him, and then he cries, and the tear bleeds into his makeup. Beautiful, because he's forcing himself to be happy, and he can't do it. And he talks about that throughout the film. Being unhappy, that's what he naturally is. And so when he forces a smile, it hurts him. Later on, he's talking to Bruce. Or when he sees Bruce, he's trying to do his little magic act just for a second outside the gate. And then it cuts to him from behind Bruce's face, and he reaches up, and you can't really tell what he's doing, but I thought it was like kind of hugging his brother kind of a thing. It was kind of weird. But it cuts to him, and it shows him pulling his mouth wide, trying to force Bruce's smile. That's a long time Joker thing to try and make Batman laugh, or trying to put a smile on his face. There's dialogues from movies, dialogues from comics, dialogues from the animated series, the whole episode's about that. Just trying to get Batman to smile. That was an interesting little nod that I was like, that was kind of cool, which I didn't catch the first time because I was trying to figure out I was waiting for him to snap and do something. But then the second time I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But then at the end of the movie, he's on, after they crash into the cop car, they pull him out and they put him on, and he stands up with a standing ovation to all the scum in Gotham. And then he's bleeding out of his mouth, and he takes the blood and he makes a smiley
face. Yep.
That's the change from Arthur forcing himself to smile like in real life versus the Joker actually smiling out of his blood.
Just smile, yeah.
Amazing and beautiful metaphor.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh,
so good. And that's good foreshadowing too. That's good visual contrast. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what's real here. First of all, we talk about the open. So, do you think the opening sequence with Martin? Do you think that was real or no? I think it was in his head the second time I watched it.
With Murray,
where he's on Murray, where he's on Murray's show. And
I don't think it was. Well, I don't think it was real, but he may have believed to some extent that it was real.
He did, yeah. Oh, absolutely. He thought it really happened, and that's why he was remembering it like it was shattered, like you said, when he watched it and he was making fun of him. Okay, well, there's that one. The hospital, though. This is the weird one that I was trying to figure out, and I totally forgot about this the first time. Early in the movie, he's talking to the therapist, and the therapist says, she mentions when he was hospitalized, and then it cuts just for a shot of him in the white gown in the window, smashing his head on the door.
Yeah. Okay,
it cuts away, and you never see anything about that again, and never references him having been in the hospital. When he's reading the files at the hospital with his mother, when it gets to the part where he's reading about the interviews with her, it shows him there listening and watching. And then it cuts to the very end of the movie where he's in the therapy session at the hospital. So I'm trying to piece this together, and I haven't settled on this. I don't think he was there the whole time. I mean, I don't think he was at the hospital and this whole movie was in his head, or he's remembering what happened, up until the last scene was in his head. It doesn't make sense. And I think that's kind of a really weak cop-out.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think that's right. I don't think he was in the hospital the whole time. I don't think this was all in his head.
Good.
Nope.
Well, we're two smart people, then apparently that wasn't the case.
What I don't know is how much of this all was in his head. I think I want to watch it again, looking for more.
Right.
Because I think it's more than just the girl and Murray's and.
I'll tell you what I think happened. This is the ending of the movie. The Murray thing was in his head. The girlfriend was in his head. And both of them died. Once he killed Murray, I thought this right when I walked out of the theater the first time. Once he killed Murray, remember it cuts to the monitors showing the different cuts and angles and some of the static and stuff. And you hear all that, the dialogue, the news talking about him being arrested. Some of it hearing clips from what he was saying and everything. And it has all this stuff. I thought that was the end of the movie. And I was like, oh, that was really cool. But then it cuts and goes on. I think, because then it cuts right to him leaning out the window at the cop car. He got arrested. They had him going down the cop car, and he's watching the violence, including the Waynes, which they walked out of Zorro the Gay Blade on my top 7 underrated comedies list. And then he's seeing all this and smiling, and then the cop in the front seat says, you know, what are you laughing about? Look at how awful this is. Wherever he leans up, he says, I know, that's why it's so funny or whatever. Before the car gets hit by the ambulance, that never happened. That never happened. He's on the way to get booked. That's what happened to him. And the rest of that whole sequence, the car crashes, they pull him out, they put him up, they praise him, he stands up and he takes his standing ovation. That was all in his head. that was him being embraced by the society that he now created, the chaos, and that he's the master of, that he was the hero. He already said, I'm not into these politics and I don't care about this stuff. He thought it was funny watching the clowns do all their stuff.
Right.
But that wasn't him. He wasn't propaganda.
Well, and yeah, I mean, it could be filmmakers' symbolism too, but you might be right, because how would any of the clowns know who he is really? They didn't know who he was when he was in the train. He had just killed the guy. It's not like
they were out on the streets rioting. They weren't watching the news.
They weren't watching it. They wouldn't all be praising him or necessarily trying to rescue him. It's possible, but it seems more likely that he's like, oh yeah, this is all.
And it was just it was too glorious, and that was him.
Well, and again, this is the same scene because it cuts from that to Batman.
In that mess, it shows Batman
standing there, which is a little over the top as well. Like it's a little cheesy, maybe, in the way they're doing it, and so that's very possible. I think that's really possible that didn't actually happen.
In my mind, I love that, because now he can begin I can believe that this character now can begin a career as the Joker, because one, he has no attachments to anything. There's nothing. He even says to Murray,
that's what I was saying earlier, nothing. He has no motivation.
And Murray said something, I can't remember what his question was, but his response was, because he's like, you don't care that you kill these guys? No, I don't care. I have nothing to lose. Everything's gone. Like, whatever, who cares? It's all, my life is a joke now. And that's the joke, and no one gets it. So now his entire comedy career, he wanted to be a stand-up comedian. In the Joker's mind, off of Arthur's meds, he thinks that comedy is all this violence and stuff, and those are the jokes. Those are the killing jokes. All that violence is when something happens, it's hilarious to him. For Arthur, it's inappropriate, and it's scary. And if something like that happens, he laughs out of awkwardness because of his condition. Off of his meds, the Joker lives his life like that. Where if he got on them, I mean, it wouldn't be this easy, but I'm saying if Joker was able to come out of that and be Arthur, seeing what the Joker did, he'd be laughing hysterically out of horror, right?
Yeah.
But the Joker now has his career in this world of violence and chaos until Batman can come in, if in this universe he did. I mean, he won't in the sequels. There won't be sequels, I don't think. I'm just saying.
They better not. They just leave it alone.
Right. I'm just saying, in this canon, if in this story, if there was a Batman, I can see this character being just totally obsessed with trying to get that Batman to laugh. Causing violence on this Batman. Beautiful.
Which is why he doesn't want to kill him. He would not want to kill him. That's one thing I found interesting, is there's people he just wasn't interested in killing. Not for any particular reason. He's just like, I just don't need to kill this.
Like the midget guy. He's like, you never hurt me. You were the only one that was nice to me. And it was oh gosh, when he couldn't reach up. And
do you think post full Joker transition, that's not necessarily true? Like he might not kill him, but it wouldn't be because he was nice to him. He'd just be like, it's a toss up whether he would kill you or not.
I don't think so.
But you don't think after he's gone full Joker?
No.
It
doesn't matter.
Either here nor there. That is my favorite scene in the whole movie. Easy.
Which one?
The one with when he kills the other clown. They come to visit.
And that one visually incredible.
Oh, it's incredible, and it was well constructed. It was well set up, and you're like, this horrible thing goes on, and this poor dwarf is freaking out, and you feel so bad for him, and yet you're also laughing.
Yeah.
Like, how do you bring out so many emotions
in one sequence?
In a single scene.
It's a short scene too, and he's finally like, I'm not gonna hurt you. You can go. And he's like, he's like, why would you? He's like, don't look at him. Just go. Don't look. Just go. And then he's like cowering. He can't reach the lock. And then he turns, and there's no music right here.
No, because you see him when he's reaching, and you're like, oh my gosh. No. And you're thinking, you have to turn back and ask a murderer to assist you with something.
To get out of the room, yeah.
To get away from the murderer.
And he laughs.
How awful is that?
He goes and he cracks the door between him and the door, and closes it again. You're like, oh no. Then he turns to him.
And just spooks him just cause. No, and well, and even his friend, that's another one that's scary. That's like he doesn't it's not really his friend, it's an associate who is only who's only friends to Arthur to the extent that it's convenient for him. Because that's the guy who turned Arthur in about the gun and basically lied about the gun. So he gave him the gun and then lied about it.
The other guy. The guy he killed.
Big guy, yes.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the midget.
No, I switched off the midget. No, yeah, this guy, like, you know, and there's people like that in your life where you're like, you're not really my friend. Like you wouldn't really have my back if you had the chance, and you'd betray me in a second.
And there was nothing to gain for him telling him about the gun.
No.
He just got Arthur in trouble. He made fun of the dwarf, you know, several times, and it was like, the guy's just a jerk. He's an awful person. And that's what,
even though he's there pretending to be a friend, like, hey, here, we heard you're having a tough time, here's some alcohol, and he's just like, screw you.
right.
And so it's rewarding to you as a person watching, and yet you're still like, oh, that's awful. And then the scene progresses into, oh, this is funny, oh, that's dreadful, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's up there with my top 5 favorite scenes of every movie ever.
Wow.
That's like, yeah, that's pretty amazing.
I do love the visual when he kills the guy, and you have the blood splatter on his white makeup. Looks so cool. I also had another theory about every time there's blood splatter, it's all about vengeance. In that one, he was getting revenge on the guy, blood splatter. The second time was Bruce, or when he kills Murray, blood splatter on the other side of his face. And then when Bruce's parents are killed, blood splatter, which triggers the ultimate vengeance story. But I was like, interesting. Other good metaphors visually. Just the other one I was thinking of was the train. When it shows the train, that long shot of the train going into the city, that's when he's going into the Murray show and everything. That's a society thing, and it's talking about all the garbage and all that stuff is all on the outer skirts and the streets and everything in the suburbs and all that stuff. When you get into the city, that's where all the rich people are, that's the wealthy, and that's when he comes out. When he's on the train going out, that's when he's escaping, and that's when he's being arrested, everything going out. It's really, really beautiful metaphor. That's where the studio is. They say that on the dialogue in the
right.
Like, in this is filmed downtown Gotham, you know. For him to be going into the beast of the belly to take out, one, when he confronts Wayne, that's in the opera house, and 2 is to meet Murray. There's something specific about that, and that's why when he's going home, there's always that long walk, lots of stairs and all that stuff, because this is his life. But a lot of great visuals with the stairs. I wish I had cuts I could put together, because
well, it's one I need to watch just for different things like that. Like, one I just need to watch and just pay attention to visuals, and then I need to watch it and just pay attention to what's real and what's not. And then I just need to watch and
music, the score. I want to watch it
like you did, you know, or the score. Like, yeah, oh yeah.
I could watch this movie like 5 times, like in a week, and not be bored. I don't usually do that. This is one I will want as soon as it comes out to rewatch it. And guess what? I'm not going to go shoot up a mall because I do it, because it's not influencing me to do that. I'm not saying that influences don't exist in media. I'm just saying that that's not a flaw of this movie, that it's too violent. It's not. The other cool thing is, speaking of violence, and it's not, he kills like 5 guys in this movie. There's a lot of riots and everything.
And I mean, the one you think is happened, you don't see anything, and then the last one is very, very subtle.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say very, very subtle. It's obvious, but it's a little more. The
therapist and the girlfriend are off-camera potential kills.
Yes, that's right.
So he kills Murray. He kills the 3 guys on the street.
Like, some people are saying that. I think someone said they take the woman violence off screen so that people couldn't complain about it. And which is possible, but
I went to the comic book store after I saw it this time. I was talking to 2 of them in there who I talked to movies about, and we were talking about that's another possibility, is about men. These are the men influences in his life. Thomas Wayne, his boss, Murray. You know, these are all male influences, and there's something missing. He had a mother, but and he kills his mother. I guess that's 5 that he kills.
That's right. That one you do see.
Even though it's behind a pillow, so you don't. No, I'm just kidding. But the
You do see the scene, I guess.
yeah, you know for sure it's not abstract like the other ones. But these are all male figures of him as a parent and as guides in his life that he extinguishes when each of them disappoint him one way or another, and just make him feel like he's got nothing, that he can only rely on himself. So when he falls into the darkness and into his madness, the only thing he can do is become himself. And he's like, you know what? Now, being myself, I'm on top of the world. And he even says to the therapist, I feel like I've never existed. We said that before. He feels like he never existed, but now, he says, when he says that to Murray, now people are noticing me. I killed these 3 people, and now people are starting to take notice and see me. Now he's the king of comedy. He's the Joker. He's going to be ahead of violence, and he's going to be pinned at the top of the wanted posters for years and years to come. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant character piece, and I think it could be a perfect origin story if you want to look at it that way. I think some people are finding flaw in the movie, but I'm like, it's weak. I think everything is there.
I haven't heard anything that's solid. I have read a couple reviews, and I'm just like, it's bullcrap. Like, if you're trying to be critical for the sake of being critical,
right? It's a popular movie. It's a fantastically well done movie, and so people, I think, approach like, I bet you I'll find things wrong with it.
There's some people who think that there's some Disney shills, people being paid by Disney to give it negative reviews because they're like, this just trounced every Marvel movie.
Yeah, and we know it's not.
It's not happening, but there are people. In fact, someone was all like, "Oh, you can like Marvel and DC movies after the Joker movie came out," and it's like, can you? Because you haven't liked a DC movie in 15 years, and all of a sudden this one comes out, and you're like, "Oh, well, we can like both," and it's like, no, sorry, you don't get to play that card.
Yeah.
But I'm bitter because people have been unfairly critical of DC for the last several years.
Right.
And now they come out with one of the best movies of all time. So
total different flavor of everything before. I think one other cool thing between this and the Heath Ledger Joker, I thought about this after I saw the second time. There's a cool line in the Dark Knight where he says, he's talking to the other gangsters, and he's like, look what I did with just a few bullets and a few barrels of gasoline. I turned this city upside down or whatever. In this movie, he accomplished essentially the same thing with a revolver and a few bullets.
Yep.
Crazy. And I don't know. I'm not gonna say like, could he develop into that type of a criminal that we see in the comics with Batman, but it's an amazing character. This character of Joker is an amazing character. It's intriguing, and you can see yourself, you sympathize with him, you're worried for him, and you also want him put down by the end of it. So good. And that's a great Joker.
It's a believable transition, right? You're like, oh, okay, yeah. You can see how someone at the end of what happened, being a messed up person, right? Not that it makes it okay.
No.
But you watch it and you're like, yeah, that's probably what would happen.
Where do you rank him on Jokers for you?
Oh gosh. I think him and Heath Ledger did equally great jobs as the top. I think they were doing two different things, so I'm not gonna say that one's better than the other, but I think Heath Ledger and him both.
The part where he finally puts on the makeup and he dyes the hair. He already dyed the hair before he killed the guy. Puts on the makeup, puts on the coat, and then starts playing the music. I can't remember what the song is. And he struts out, and then he finally steps on. He's like strutting down the hallway, and then he gets on the elevator, and he finally turns around. And you see him in full costume. You're like, it's almost like, yes, like this is the first time you really see him.
Yeah,
and it's like awesome, and you're just, it's like the first time that Heath Ledger steps out in the kitchen when the mob bosses are meeting him, and he's like, there he is, even though he was already on camera. But it's just, he
does the magic trick though, and you're like, yep,
You get up.
Amazing.
And then he goes out, struts down the hall or the stairs and dances and everything. I love that sequence. I love that the whole rest of the movie, once he is the Joker, is my favorite. I'm so intrigued by all the Arthur stuff and everything building up, and that's what makes the rest of it work. But once he is in full get up, I'm like, here we go. I can't wait. And he gets to the show, even the subway sequence, but he gets on the show, and I'm like, I love it. I love the dialogue. I love the way his expressions are and everything, the way he responds differently to the situation, the audience, and Murray than he did everything else in the movie. He's a whole different person on that stage. I love it. Amazing. I don't know where I put it. Doesn't matter. Who cares? It's right up there. I tell you what, I wanted to come right home and watch Heath Ledger, and I'll say this. I would love, if it could be done, it can't be done, to watch a movie this good showing the creation of the Heath Ledger Joker. It will never happen. It couldn't happen. But to see that development of what made that guy, but at the same time, some people are like, I don't want to see they like the mysteriousness of the Joker. And that's all Heath Ledger's Joker was. I would just love to see a movie that focused on him, because he's on shot every frame of the shot, every frame of the movie is either something the Joker's doing or something the Joker's seeing.
Yeah.
Like, he was on, and you were never bored looking at Joaquin Phoenix play this. You're like, the whole time, you're like,
it's a great job.
Yeah. Anyway, I would give it a 10 out of 10 for cinematography, music, story, characters, everything. I think it's a nearly flawless movie. If there's a flaw, I can't find it, other than I don't like the little hint of the hospital, but that's not a flaw. That's just, I don't get it.
No, it's amazing. Go see it.
Yeah. And the other thing I'll say is, I love that, and I've said this several times, I love that the discussion I've had, a lot of in-depth discussions like this one about this movie, had nothing to do with violence and the statements that the art is making in society, and is this a controversy or a problem, and all that the political stuff. None of that matters. The character study and the behavioral study and things that we see in ourselves, and trying to piece together this ambiguous story, that's a much more exciting and a fun conversation, and a healthy conversation, than trying to point fingers at everything else.
I'd also say it says it's a lot better movie when you can actually talk about the content of the movie, instead of fighting over whether it was even good or not. Like,
yes,
like you have to do with a lot of movies. It's like, no, there's way more to talk about than the awfulness or the greatness of the movie. It's great. So now let's dissect characters and plot. It's so rare that you get to do that.
Yeah. This is high art, as high as it can go, if you ask me. It really is. All right. Well, that's our discussion, and I hope you guys, if you watched it, I'm sure you already saw the movie, and whatever. Tell us what you think. If you disagree, what do you think about the murders off screen, or if they were or weren't, or whatever. And if you're caring about the politics, I don't care. If you can comment below, I don't care. Anyway, fantastic movie, 10 out of 10. Celestial film. Go see this in the theater. Box yourself into the screen. Don't worry about terrorists coming in. There's cops in every theater I've seen. But opening weekend's over. But go in, see it. Enjoy the music and the sound and the intrigue, and just watch it. Are you gonna see it again in the theater, Zach?
Probably not, just because I barely have enough time. But I will watch it again.
Fair enough. All right. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us on Saints on Cinema, and we will catch you next time. Thanks again, Zach, for joining us. You're the best.
Yeah.
See you guys.